Hey, microphone testing, you playing politician, you Martin Sheen on the West Wing, guessing the best thing for me to do is spit it, this shit is never a gimmick, you listen more than a minute, I've been spitting flows since a kid was 6 years old. If you listen close, I do this like some mismatched clothes. It's whatever, put it together. You never could be this clever. I'm rocking the mic forever. You gonna stop me? Never. I'm cocky because I love it. You rocky without the punches, hockey without the ice, and boxes without the lunches. Flowing like me, knowing, and that got you mad, bitch. Swore your boys are nothing but just average. I ain't telling nobody how they should live their life. I got my own shit to deal with, so that just isn't right. I'm just trying to leave the crib, go out and live the nice shit. Fuck that, I'm locked in the lab working, dropping the track, beats get bodied in bags certain. See the world through first, second, and third person. Omniscient, listening so efficient, trapped in my own goal line, ready to go the distance. Consider it a privilege that you get to witness history in the making.
Right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way.
There's no answer and you called twice. Nobody be at my house. I was at the studio all night. Last night I slept on the couch. I might wake up, do it all again. There's a world going crazy outside, but let's pretend that it's alright. We keep pretending that it's alright. Yeah, alright. Days get mixed up, schedules get switched up. Can't be two places at once. So I take a hit up.
Well, good afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time you're watching this episode of the OGA podcast, the Our Geoengineering Age podcast. Welcome to the show. I have a wonderful guest, Rob Williams. He is the current publisher, right? We've kind of reevaluated some things heading into the new year. Rob is the publisher for OGA, and Rob is also one of the co-founders. He's also a yacker. He's a breath coach. He is a local entrepreneur here in the Mad River Valley, which is where we're actually both filming from today, which is kind of fun. But Rob, welcome to the show.
And he's just happy to be here. Hi, Paul. And you are OGA's associate publisher and our digital juggernaut on Substack and all the socials, and our 2026 OGA podcast, of which this is our first episode.
Yeah, and Rob, something you and I had been talking a little bit about is maybe making this Creemee Cast as well, which I think for some of the maybe people watching this, you might remember some of those shows that I was doing for a while, and I think we're going to be rebooting that, and maybe this is the first installment of it. But I don't want to say too much because there's other details associated with that that maybe we'll have to talk about in the future. But today's episode is mainly focused on our geoengineering age heading into 2026. We're here, Rob. The geoengineers are coming out of the closet, as we've like to say, and we have been saying now for like the last year. And it's just been so fascinating to watch some of the rhetoric that we're seeing coming out of some politicians, some of the thought leaders, if you will, in the scientific community in Washington, D.C. And we've had quite a year. Last year was quite an interesting year for us, both of us having made trips to the UK to talk about geoengineering. But Rob, just give me your thoughts. Like, where are we at for this conversation, 2026, January? What's going on?
Sure. Well, let's begin by reminding ourselves, Paul, and our audience that OGA is here our geoengineering age is here as a research and publishing organization in 2026. OGA is here to provide an evidence-based exploration of our Earth's most pressing yet underreported global environmental issue. And that is, of course, geoengineering, which we might also define as weather manipulation and climate modification. So that's OGA's mission and purpose, our raison d'etre, as the French like to say, our reason for being. And second thing to point out for us, and I think for our audience, is that we at OGA are a team. There are 5 of us: our nuclear geochemist, Dr. J. Marvin Herndon, our public health leader, Mark Whiteside, Marvin being in Carolina, Mark being in Florida, our patriarch, Ian Baldwin, environmentalist, publisher, also here in Vermont, up the road. And then myself as publisher and you as associate publisher. So we are a team of 5, and our mission is to provide an evidence-based exploration of Earth's most pressing yet underreported global environmental issue, which is geoengineering.
No, I think it's always so great to remind people that watch us or have been following us, and maybe if you're new here, that we are a organization of 5. We're not lone wolves trying to do this on our own, because truly it is such a heavy lift to try to understand this subject and explain it well, for that matter. And you know, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of different activists who are doing just that, and it's a wonderful thing. And we definitely, one of the things I'm noticing heading into the new year, Rob, is a lot of voices are emerging in this space, which is a really great thing. We love to see it. We love to see more people are talking about it. The most prominent example top of mind is, of course, Dane Wigington, who was recently on Tucker Carlson towards the end of last year, which was, I mean, I thought it was an interesting development, and I think it was good to watch, especially to have Tucker having that conversation. Rob, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that conversation with Tucker and Dane Wigington?
I thought it was helpful to have Tucker Carlson have both Dane and Peter Kirby on his show. Peter, lesser known because it ran sort of as a, whatever Tucker Carlson's people call his kind of ancillary episodes. But I thought Peter Kirby did a good job. He's the author of the New Manhattan Project about geoengineering, for those who may be wondering who Peter Kirby is. And Dane, of course, is the lead and founder of Geoengineering Watch. It was curious to me, Paul, Tucker Carlson is a pretty bright and well-researched fellow. I've been in his library, actually, at his studio in his main location. And the dude has collected and read a lot of books about US history and politics. And it was curious to me, Paul, Tucker either doesn't actually really know anything about the history of geoengineering, or he was pretending that he didn't know much about the history of geoengineering. I couldn't tell which it was. But in his conversations with both Dane Wigington and Peter Kirby, he seemed even a bit flabbergasted about what he was learning in conversation with them. So that's curious to me. What did you make of those 2 conversations, Paul?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, it's funny when you describe Tucker as flabbergasted. I think it's hilarious because he always seems to be like, what is going on? What what is that?
Yeah, it's a bit of his kind of persona, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's some, I think he's not acting entirely. I think he's definitely surprised. I find it hard to believe, though. He had to have known way more about geoengineering than he lets on, especially in his conversation with Dane Wigington, because he spoke to Peter Kirby beforehand.
Yes.
So there's a whole lot of like, what? Oh my goodness. Why does nobody know about this? But
you're right. That is.
Like, you just talked about it. Like,
Yeah, that is part of his personality. Yeah, so there has been interest, I would say, from national media personalities in the subject of geoengineering. That's the first interesting thing that's happening to your original question, Paul. The second interesting thing that's happening is more than 30 states have now introduced legislation about geoengineering into their state legislatures. Geoengineering, weather manipulation, climate modification. And these are legislatures that are run the gamut politically. They're not just conservative or liberal, whatever those terms mean to our audience. They seem pretty comprehensive in terms of covering the waterfront politically. And thirdly, Vermont, the once and future Republic of Vermont, here where you and I and Ian live, you and me and Ian live, has introduced again a bill called H217, which, as far as we can tell, is the most comprehensive and far-reaching geoengineering legislation of any state in the United States, because it criminalizes and tasks particular law enforcement bodies with enforcing penalties for those who commit geoengineering activity without public permission, which is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, I think the bill's very Vermonty, if that makes any sense.
It's very Vermonty. And what do you mean by that, Paul?
I mean, like,
I know, yeah.
It's like this is probably the only state in the country where if you were like, yeah, tasking the state police with enforcing this, that they'll probably do it. At least try.
Yeah.
They'll at least try. And if there's any funny business, let's say, involved with that, we'll hear about it. Where I think in a lot of other states, maybe this is just me speaking off the cuff when I'm telling you this. It just seems like if anywhere you could actually do something and enforce it and like hear about how things are going, it's going to be here.
Yeah. Well, and that's such a great point, Paul. And the other interesting thing about the Vermont State Police is they are our friends and neighbors. And Vermont has a fairly light law enforcement presence. I'm sure people know this. We're also very heavily armed in Vermont, which is a little known secret, actually, because of the national media's obsession with Vermont as a blue state and Bernie Sanders and Ben and Jerry's and all the so-called liberal, whatever. And that's not a judgment, just an observation. But I do think that if we can win over the hearts and minds of our Vermont State Police friends and neighbors with simply knowledge of what's going on in our skies, our soils, our waterways, with all of this geoengineering activity, that could be great for us. And that might put a little teeth into law enforcement around this issue.
Yeah, and I think you and I both know, and we don't have to get too deep into this, but to win the hearts and minds of those folks, that's going to be another thing. First of all, you got to win the hearts and minds of the legislature and those in committee, and that's just to touch on that a little bit. I am really hopeful for Vermont, politicians and leaders, especially in 2026, to start to take this issue seriously. Vermont is known for being the first state a lot of the time to, take a big step for something. And I'm hopeful that the environmentally minded people of Vermont will grab this issue by the horns and really take it seriously, because, we do consider ourselves to be environmentalists here. We care a lot about pollution. And that's historically, Vermont has always been like that, or at least it has in recent history. So I would like to think that our neighbors, our friends and neighbors, will feel the same way. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, beautifully said, Paul. And the issue of geoengineering is a decidedly nonpartisan issue. Geoengineering is a form of air pollution, weather manipulation, climate modification are forms of air, water, soil, earth pollution. And any self-respecting Vermonter who is not really interested in defending our once and future Republic of Vermont, the Shire, our lands, our waterways, um, our skies from being more polluted, especially secretly. Um, it seems to me not really worth his or her salt. So I hope you're right. I hope that we can perhaps use this conversation about geoengineering to skirt so much of the manufactured political polarization that we're seeing across the United States right now, and really have genuine conversations and policies around this.
I think increasingly people are beginning to see this issue as a non-political issue. I've even had some friends and family members say that to me, like, doesn't really seem like geoengineering is political, which is kind of a funny thing because, you know, we can just break into these hats. We both have these hats on. You have the Make Skies Blue again. I got the Make Clouds Real again. And that's, of course, a play on the whole, you know, MAGA, Make America Great Again, or MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, right? So, you know, inherently, this issue, we're playing along with a message, and it is a political message that we're playing with, let's say. But I would say that this issue is inherently not a political issue.
Yeah.
And
Well,
just a quick story on that. You know, I was wearing this Make Clouds Real Again hat. I was in Denver, Colorado, visiting a friend, and there was a young woman, young girl there running the leasing space for the apartment building that my friend lives in. And I was wearing this hat, and she said she was just kind of like, I think, setting up the coffee machine or something, and she said, "Hey, what is that hat? Like, what does that mean?" And I said, "Well, you know, what do you think it means?" And she says, "Well, it's got to mean something political. Like it's got to be political, isn't it?" And of course, it's a Make America, or, you know, Make Clouds Real Again hat. Of course, she's going to think that has something to do with politics, but the issue really is not political at all, Rob. What do you think of that?
agreed. Um, it's it's an issue that affects every living, breathing creature, and in that sense, it's nonpartisan. I have a quick similar story. I was wearing this blue "Make Skies Blue Again" hat in an airport a few weeks ago, and a young man asked me the same question, and I asked him, as you did, the same question back, which is, "What do you think this hat means?" And he said, "Well, it's got to be political, like maybe the Democrats are taking back the MAGA stuff." And I said, "No, but that's a very interesting reaction, and I appreciate you sharing it." And then I explained to him a little bit about geoengineering and weather manipulation, climate modification, air pollution. And he said, "Oh yeah, I think I've heard something about that." And we left on amicable terms, and I shared with him our website, our geoengineeringage.org. And I was encouraged by that conversation, and I've had a few conversations like that. And as you did, Paul, it's always interesting just to ask, people what they imagine these hats to mean.
Yeah,
Aren't you selling these hats? By the way, aren't we selling these hats?
yeah. So just as a quick plug, yeah, of course, we are selling these hats. You can buy Macra, Make Clouds Real Again, or I don't know how to say that one, but Make Skies Blue Again. We're selling them for $55 a piece. You know, if that's maybe you think that's steep, let me just sell you on the fact that by buying these hats, you're supporting OGA, you're supporting our work, and it's a message that it really is a conversation starter. You wear one of these hats around a little bit, and you want to have conversations with people that are curious, or you want to even attract people to you that kind of know that there's something going on, but they're not sure, but they see your hat, they ask you about it. That's happened to me a bunch of times too, Rob, where you just find that there are so many curious human beings out there that want to know. They know something's not right. They know something. They can tell. We all can tell innately, but they don't have the information, or they don't have the place or the person that they can ask those questions. So if you buy one of these hats and you wear it around a little bit, it's kind of like a fun experiment. It's like a little bit of a magic thing, honestly. That's very resonant, wouldn't you say?
That's the word, resonant. Yeah. Yeah. And this is a fundraiser for us.
Exactly.
We're a research and publishing organization. We have a very small budget. It's fair to say that we could certainly use some more financial support in the months and years ahead. So
absolutely,
support our work, and we're doing the best we can with our team of 5.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rob. I just to say on that note, going forward into 2026, we were just talking about a bill here in Vermont. We were talking about bills around the country. Long term, we can see this conversation eventually reaching the national platform, and it already has to some degree. And I think we should talk a little bit more about that. But as just a final selling point, there's some big steps along the way for OGA to make, and ultimately, we want to see this issue stopped. We want to see more awareness about it, and that's just one of the ways that you can support us. And it's pretty cool. Like I said, it's a cool hat. Who doesn't want?
It's so cool. Yeah. Well, and there's a couple more big things we should just mention here. I think folks who listened to our last conversation last fall know that there's a new documentary film being launched this year around the world called Just Look Up, Uncovering the Elephant in Our Skies. Ariana Victor, shout out to the director, the young and talented Ariana Victor. If you're curious to find out more about this film, Instagram is the social media platform for you. Just look up official. A little hard to see here, but
I'll pull it up, Rob.
Yeah.
I'll pull up an image of it so
Yeah,
people can see.
and Ariana and her team streamed the film for free for a couple of weeks in early December, and they're preparing for the next foray sometime here soon. The film does feature two OGA members, Dr. J. Marvin Herndon, our nuclear geochemist, who has advanced the coal fly ash hypothesis about where this nanoparticulate metal pollution is being sourced, and yours truly on the environmental history side of geoengineering. And it's a real cast of characters in the film, and most profoundly, Ariana has done a remarkable job of stitching together a really beautiful 90-minute story in a really fun, believe it or not, and provocative way. So just look up official, find them on Instagram, follow along, support the film. We're hopefully going to bring the film to Vermont, maybe even a little tour when that's possible. We have prepared a film study guide at Ariana's request. That's in play as well for homeschools, classrooms of all ages. So that's exciting. That's an exciting project in the works.
Yeah, no, that's going to be. I've watched that film, and I think for people out there that have heard of it, they haven't seen it yet, hoping to see it. I'm not trying to oversell it or anything, but the production is excellent. I don't want anybody to get like super worked up or whatever. But it's very good, and we look forward to maybe even interviewing Ariana in the very near future.
Oh, you will.
Yeah, we're going to get that set up, and it's really well done. I won't say anything more. How about that?
Yeah. Well, and then two more quick things. So our Amanos Grease, our patriarch Ian Baldwin, is in the midst of planning and now writing a new book he's calling The Primer on the existential underpinnings of geoengineering. And without giving away too much, because you're going to have him on to talk about it soon, we're very excited about that project for this year. And I'm acting as his editorial assistant and researcher du jour on that. And then finally, I would say, Paul, you're upping your Substack game. You just dropped a beautiful Substack today. Your Substack post last week about Operation Sky River and the history of geoengineering in China was amazing. And you uncovered some posters and Chinese party iconography that I had never seen.
You hadn't seen that, right?
No. And
yeah.
it just blew me away. And it was so Chinese.
Oh yes.
But so telling in terms of the People's Republic of China, the Communist Party faithful leaning into their imperial, we can control the weather as we have been dreaming of for 5,000 years symbology. It's so interesting. So I'd encourage readers to subscribe to our Substack, keep up with what we're doing there, and to you, keep up the great work.
Yeah, absolutely. I obviously I love doing it, and getting into the new year once again. I think that we're going to have some good pieces that are coming out of the OGA Substack. I've been working on really upping the game. I've been writing now for this will be my third year full time writing as a writer,
Mm.
and I think it's been getting better, and I think people have appreciated the work, and it's fun. But those posters, Rob, I got to say, I thought they were pretty cool. Like those are pieces of art that I would love to have.
I
They're
know. I
they're pretty
know.
cool.
Yeah, part of me was terrified, and part of me wanted to frame them just because visually and aesthetically, they're so interesting.
Definitely. There and I'll when I put this episode together, I'll pull them up so people can see what they look like. But there's just like one of them where it's like, showing this the silver eagle seeds the rain. That was the title
Yes,
of it. And like
yes.
the people are on the side of the hill watching the beautiful silver eagle, making, seeding the clouds for rain. It's just like, whoa, this is really, and they're from the 70s too. So just so people, that's something. And by the way, I want to say this quickly, as we talk more and more about cloud seeding, especially as the geoengineers have come out of the closet, people keep commenting things and saying things like, well, nobody said that cloud seeding is a conspiracy theory, or nobody said that cloud seeding isn't possible, or we can't make it rain. It's like, no, people have been saying that to us for years, right? And now you see the Augustus Doricko of Rainmaker coming out of nowhere and saying, oh, we got this great cloud seeding thing that we're doing. It's like new. Which is it? Is it new? Has it been around for a while? Like, what's going on? And all we're saying is that it is a form of geoengineering. It's been around clearly since at least we know since the late 1940s. But yeah, like the Chinese were kind of like propagandizing it in the 70s, right? And we were doing that too. And just to bring it full circle, I was sent earlier last week those images of the "We Build Rain" advertisements at the DC Metro in Washington D.C., the train station, and that was sent to me by a friend of ours who works a little bit for the whole Maha crowd, and he just said like, of course, like here we are, and of course that being in Washington D.C., and I wanted to ask you, Rob. I think you see this as well. People, again, to tie it back to the political
Mm.
side of the conversation, right? I'm seeing some political rhetoric around this subject a little bit. And I'm also seeing a little bit of like a religious side to it too, with the Augustus Doricko. You see some of the stuff, the Wall Street Journal article specifically. Do you think there's like a rhetoric kind of ramp up, if you will, politically? It seems like there seems to be kind of a connection there. What do you think of that?
Yes, I think so. Um, Humans for thousands of years now have been intrigued by our abilities, our ever increasing abilities to manage nature and control natural events. So, geoengineering, Paul, is simply an extension of that impulse. And this is, by the way, what Ian Baldwin will be exploring in his new book, the existential human impulse to control nature rather than to flow with nature. And this goes back a long way. You and I have talked before about the ancient Chinese emperors who were interested in what they called smart human shadow work, the controlling of the weather, to make it rain so the Chinese peasants would continue to support the emperor and the imperial dynasty. So this goes back thousands and thousands of years. And yes, I think in this present moment, Augustus Doricko being one of the poster boys for this, we are seeing this ramp up of the celebration, as with the Chinese posters from the 70s, of our abilities to manipulate, steer, control, enhance, pick your verb of choice.
Sure.
And there's always, of course, environmental consequences, unforeseen or foreseen, that accompany that.
No, I certainly see some parallels too. Not going as far back as the ancient Chinese, but at least into the 70s with that kind of same artwork where it obviously it's a little bit, actually I think the artwork from the 70s is better, to be honest. It's a
Yeah.
little bit, but there's a parallel to be made to the same message. It's like we build rain. Cloud seeding is the answer. It's like, this is, for years we were told that that's crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. You've lost your mind. And I'm not, I'm holding on to that because we're
Yeah,
not going to forget that's how it was. Now
yeah,
we're being told, oh, it's actually the solution to everything. This is how
yeah.
we're gonna save the world. We're gonna and it's also Christ pilled. It's Jesus. It's super like based in Christian, right? And just to pick on Augustus again, the image of him, with the cross kneeling next to his cloud seeding drone. It's just like, yeah, just slap Christianity on it. Now it's great. Like,
Ball
what do we?
capped mullet blowing in the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got
Are you gonna-
zins, bro. His zins are not a sin.
yeah. You and Augustus know each other. Is he going to be a guest on your podcast?
I'm trying to get him on. I've asked him a couple times.
It's a fascinating conversation. It'd be great to meet him and hear what he has to say.
I
Um,
agree. I agree.
yeah,
Well, we'll see.
we'll
I'm
see.
not.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of this talk of Chinese posters from the 70s remind me of James Fleming's book, Fixing the Sky, The Checkered History of Weather and Climate Control. And the cover of that book has, I think it's from the 1950s, an equally as interesting visual image. But for folks who are really still curious and maybe a little bit skeptical of geoengineering as a historical phenomenon, the best book to read is James Fleming's book, Fixing the Sky, The Checkered History of Weather and Climate Control. And Professor Fleming was emeritus professor at Colby College. I think he's retired now, but it's a very well-researched book, and it's a fascinating read. There's been a lot of good books written about geoengineering over the past couple of years from different perspectives, pro, con, otherwise. But Fleming's book is, dare I say, a classic.
Absolutely. Maybe we can get him on in the near future too. That would be really cool to do an interview with him. But Rob, I think today we've really hit on most of the big kind of news items, if you will, for followers of ours that maybe people have been wondering. And just as a final thing, I did just publish a Substack for today. I think it's pretty bizarre. I came across a Google AI ad a couple of days ago where the ad was basically trying to, show how AI, if you just take a picture of the clouds, that it'll tell you what kind of clouds they are. And in the ad, it was saying something like, these clouds look weird. What kind of clouds are these? And the clouds, of course, in the ad look, maybe suspiciously geoengineered a little. I don't know.
Enhanced?
Yeah, they didn't look. Yeah, they didn't look quite right. Let's just
No,
put it that way.
no.
Anyway, so the ad is kind of advocating for you to, let's say, advocate your innate ability to look at the weather and see for yourself what's going on. No, you gotta turn to AI to tell you what kind of clouds there are. It's super strange, and to just it really kind of, the Substack explains it a lot better than I'm going to right here, but it kind of leads to where things are going with all of this, right? It seems like the line between reality and digital reality and artificial reality increasingly are being blurred, and we're kind of being slowly pushed, or maybe not so slowly anymore. It feels like either, honestly, Rob, it feels like it's happening faster. We're being pushed into like a digital, I don't know, like landscape, if you will, where we're viewing things half digitally, half augmented. I don't know, asking AI to think for you. It's super weird. It's very odd. So the Substack explains it pretty well. But yeah, that's just kind of, I don't know. What did you think of that ad, Rob? What were your thoughts on that?
I think the Substack you just published, Paul, is really important, and you just explained it pretty well. In the same way that each of us, Paul, is having a digital twin of ourselves built. There's a digital version of Paul Bean out there in the cloud. Note the language. There's a digital version of Rob Williams, my digital twin out in the cloud, right? That's being assembled. We're also seeing the assembling of a digital veneer, a skin over the Earth, the entire planet. And this is, of course, being enhanced by regular geoengineering activity, which ionizes the lower atmosphere and creates electromagnetic possibilities for communication, weather manipulation, all the things that we've been researching and talking about for many years now. And you're right, Paul. It's gotten to the point with this particular ad where we're being asked to outsource our own human instincts, our own human senses to artificial intelligence to confirm for us or to validate for us the reality of a cloud. Rather than standing under the cloud and marveling, observing, making our own instinctual observations as humans and all creatures have done since the beginning, right? We're being asked simply to outsource our instincts, our sensory impressions, our ancient evolutionary wisdom to to machine intelligence, which of course is insane.
It's totally insane, and we see this parallel in so many parts of our lives, and I think we've just become so desensitized to it. And I say we, I shouldn't say we. I think a lot of people have become so desensitized to it. I even just talking with you about it, it kind of does light off a few more light bulbs in my head about how weird it is that ad even is a thing. Of course, off the top, I think it's strange, but the more you think about it, the more it's like, yeah, like we're really being kind of like slowly coerced into like this really strange way of viewing things, where as the last, all of history, all of human history, you don't rely on a piece of, a device or a piece of technology to tell you what the clouds are. I mean, just to not to re-say what you just said, but it's just like, what are we doing? Like, what?
Well, the lords of the cloud, let's call them, big tech corporations and their political minions, are working very hard to herd the human species, and indeed all of nature, into what we might think of as a digital zoo. And to do that, you have to control the flow of information and perception. And so this is a perception management game that Google, AI, and other big tech companies are playing. If, Paul, we can convince humans to distrust their own instincts, to toss out their own sensory impressions about what is natural and what is not, and instead outsource all of their informational awareness to machine intelligence, then they will have won. So let's not do that. Let's go outside into nature. Let's enjoy 20,000 beautiful natural breaths per day. Let's observe what's going on in the company of other big-hearted humans and the rest of living, breathing creation, and have as much fun as we can and keep doing the work that OGA does.
Very, very well said, Rob. And I think at that moment, that's a good place to stop right there. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm looking forward to a very exciting year. Hopefully we're going to have some great guests on in the next few months. And, I can't say anything concrete. I don't want to give anything away, but let's just say it is going to be a great year for OGA 2026. And we looking forward to exploring, researching, and sharing this topic more with all of humanity. And Rob, anything to add to that? Or is...
Visit our website, consider making a donation, buy a hat, support our work. And Paul, I think you and I hope to do this once monthly or so, just a check-in along with all of the other work we're doing. We're deep in flow and busy with OGA. And it's important, I think, for you and I to check in and just share some impressions about what we're seeing out there in the larger world on this topic. So I appreciate you. Thanks for all your good work. And let's have a banner year.
You too, Rob. Sounds like a plan. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks, Paul.